Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6 p.m. on Tuesday, April 8th, 2025, and I'm going to call the Public Works Committee to session. The roll call, Mr. Bellin is here, Mr. Post.
Here.
Mr. Bonacci.
Here.
All right, also in attendance is Mr. Fury, Mr. Barr, and Mayor Scafidi. Is there any audience participation this evening? Seeing none, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is the potential new service garage. Is that Mayor Scafidi?
Yes. What do you want to know?
I guess.
Could be me.
Yeah, I guess, this is something obviously that we've spoken about for several years at this point. I think it's fair to say that we are, it's in the news recently, as with the potential land swap with the schools. I guess my question is, I know that we had done some studies, I think, or we had maybe kicked off some studies in terms of feasibility of service garage. What do we need? I guess I'm looking for an update. Have we gotten any answers to those questions?
Here's where we're at. We prior to this even coming up, that Dodge property, I had talked to the school about that when I first took office almost 3 years ago, and mentioned what my intention would be someday to to have some of that property that I could do this expansion. And then all of a sudden this idea came up, and it sounded like a good idea. So what we've done in the meantime is we went through and we sent out an RFQ for architects, because I don't even know what we're looking for or how much space we really need for this building, or even what size the building's going to be. So we took. You got a question?
I was going to ask you, how big is the one you built in Glenville Exchange?
Oh, it's much smaller than this one will be.
But just
Yeah.
roughly, what is it? 10,000 square feet?
That
20,000?
I don't remember, Bill. I really don't
Nice
remember the
building.
square footage of that one. Yeah.
Beautiful building.
Yeah, it's a nice looking building, and it fits their needs, but we've got much more equipment. We're a larger community. Anyway, so we did that, and when the RFQs came in, then Amy and Patrick and Tyler and we all had a copy of these things, and we looked at them and just went through them to see, who we thought might be best suited for this. And then after we got it down to what? We had 4 people in? Yeah, we had 4 different architectural firms in. We talked with them, we met with them, they gave us their presentation, how much experience they had, so on. So then we got it down to, we chose one that we thought, we all agreed on, that we thought was going to be best for our needs. They're called R.E. Warner architectural firm. And so right now they're in the process of giving us, for the scope that we're looking for right now, because we're not looking for, any finished type product, of course, because we're not even there yet. But I really want to get an idea of a footprint, what I'm going to need. So based on, our equipment that we have and the different areas that we need, our mechanics area, our wood shop area, the sign shop, and so on and so forth, the lunchroom for the guys, everything that we need, and somewhere to park all of our vehicles. I need to know what a footprint might be. And so that's where we're at right now. We're waiting for them to get back with us on the quote to create that footprint type thing. Is there anything that you want to add to that, Amy?
No, we'll bring it before council once we get the quote.
Yeah, once we get it, it'll come to council.
So is it fair to say then that the work that's being done currently, is that agnostic of a location? Like you're looking to understand what the footprint it needs to be regardless of where
Correct.
it would be. Okay.
And I got to say this, prior to this even happening, and I started down that road and I took a different turn here with you guys, but I was looking around for other properties, somewhere else that we could put it. And, it really just didn't make sense. And I drove around the city, and Amy and I drove around, as a matter of fact, one day. We were looking at, because when we heard about what the school's legacy program was, and that, Wilcox might be going away, we drove back there to see how much property they had, what kind of neighborhood is around, what's surrounding it. Because to build a service garage, you really can't be in a neighborhood. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't make sense. As you guys all know, there's trucks going in and out of there all day long. In the wintertime, the place is lit up because they're snow plowing. You got backup alarms going all night long. You got the front end loaders going with their backup alarms, loading salt all night. The lights are on. Like I said, it's a problem. And Glen Willow's even had a problem with just the lighting there, and all their stuff is behind that really nice building, but there's a neighbor there that they had, lampposts in the driveway at night, and they complain about the lights. I mean, you can never win. You guys know that. You've been around a long time. We can never win. It's a change, and people don't like it. So we've got to be really sensitive to where we locate this building. And to me, it just made sense because then we were also looking, our salt dome is in need of replacement eventually. And it's really not adequate for our needs anymore either because we've grown, the city's grown. And so we can use, a larger salt storage building. And we couldn't even find a place for that. We looked for just that. We looked down on Ravenna Road, past Romeo's Pizza. There was a piece of property there. I talked to the owner that called me. They lived across the street, but it was like all wetland there. Of course, you can't put a salt dome there.
Right.
We were just looking. So it really made sense to keep it with our wastewater treatment plant, where the salt barn is now. It just makes sense that those two facilities remain together. That's the services of our community, and it doesn't bother anybody because it's out of the way.
Sure. And is the intent, and again, I won't hold you to it, is the intent to completely replace what is there now or augment what is there now?
At first, it was to, the building that we had talked about had a built-in cold storage building attached to it. This way, for like seasonal equipment, that was very important. All of our mowers, our sweeper, our vector, all that equipment that you don't run in the wintertime needs a place to live, and you need to home that. It doesn't need to be heated or air conditioned, but just somewhere inside, out of the elements. So, the things like that, even the little small mowers that they ride around on, but, our big tractors and the loaders, everything needs to, it needs to be kept inside. Cold storage was perfect for that. But then in thinking about it, it's like, we got that old facility there. If we're going to vacate that, why should we spend the money on this building? And I guess it all depends on what kind of pricing we're looking at when the time comes, when we get that far. If it's not a major cost to put on this cold storage building, then, yeah, we can get rid of the old building. But, so at this point, it could be used.
Okay.
We may use it as cold storage, but it may go away.
Okay.
But the real intent is to try to attach this service garage to the offices down there. So there's a way for our service director and the foreman and everybody there to be able to just walk on the inside and, be with the group that they're managing and working with.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Can you clarify something? Are you talking about adding it to the existing Are you talking about adding it to the existing officing structure or a new office structure?
No, the existing.
Okay.
I just wanted some way that I could, close enough that we could, even if it's through a hallway, to, have it attached so they have, entrance and exit right out of the office area.
And then this is probably a premature question. Have we, obviously we don't know what it's going to cost because we don't know where it's going to be, or, have we started having discussions or thinking about how we're going to pay for this?
No, and that's another thing. I've talked to Christina, and, you guys have all met Matt Stasinski, I believe, okay? And so he's part of our bond council, and so we've got to sit down and talk with Matt as well. So again, nothing is in concrete yet. It's all in the planning stage.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Post, Mr. Bonacci. Anything to add?
No, thank you for the update, Mayor.
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Post.
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Barr, Mr. Fuhrer. Anything else? Mr. Fuhrer.
So is the service garage, at sometimes, like we did water lines, we've done other things where we've gotten low rates or, special state financing. And that doesn't look like that's an option from the face and the shaking of the head I'm getting from Amy off my peripheral vision. So
I don't know what he's going to ask. Do you know?
I'm
What's he
talking
gonna
about
ask?
financing. Can we do we get zero? Do we?
Necessarily get it through Ohio with the programs I get money through are for road and sewers and water lines.
Okay.
I think your bricks and mortar is something we've typically bonded. And I doubt there's anything out there unless you're rural.
That's where I was going, Mayor.
Rural can find money for certain things like that.
Because I was talking about something else with the economic development coordinator
Might
about
as well stay
financing
right there.
something. So, not yours, but I was thinking about state financing and any options we had.
Sure.
Because, I know what I know what residential interest rates are about now, but I don't know what our rate to borrow money, and I think we're AAA or we're AA2.
Yeah.
We're up there.
We're up there, yeah.
Okay.
And, with what's going on today, who knows, with tariffs and stuff like that and prices going up, it may not even be affordable to do right now. We don't know that. This is all just in the planning phase. And I think it's something necessary for the city. I think we need it. We need it for the longevity of our equipment. We're winding up having to turn equipment more often because it sits out in the elements year-round. Winter, spring, summer, fall, rain, snow, ice, cold, hot. I mean, that's not good for that equipment. It's just not. It should be, stored and kept properly.
Okay.
So I think it's really important. And to give the staff there a nice facility to work out of. They've worked out of that place. I don't know if you guys have ever been in their lunchroom, but it's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. All right, next up on our agenda is construction project updates from Miss Amy Moore. Good evening.
Good evening. I guess I'm here to tell you where all the orange barrels are going and,
Yes.
and the progress we're making on projects that you've already authorized via legislation. So State Route 82, we partnered with ODOT, if you recall, for the resurfacing from the Tinkers Creek Bridge there by Cannon Road heading southeast out of the city on Ravenna Road and East Aurora Road in front of the Ravenna business condos, et cetera. That's starting up, signage is up, and that is being managed by ODOT. We do have some financial share, but it's through their they're picking up a lion's share of the cost to resurface that roadway. The other project that is currently ongoing in the city is the road program that you guys authorized. Perrin Asphalt is doing that project, and they've started on concrete work. So they've been through different areas of the city and will continue to migrate, doing some sidewalk repairs. So if the program is pretty much set for this year. I know we get some calls in, people asking. If you're concerned about sidewalk in front of your driveway or in front of your property, if it's city's responsibility, put a call into the service department for an inspection, and it can get on a future list. If it is our responsibility, we can determine that and put it onto a list.
We're only doing things like if your manhole cover on your sidewalk is cracked and stuff, or you've got a lawn tree that's the roots are pumping it up.
Yeah, typically, just failure of deformation on the surface is old concrete. That's not something we would handle. But yes, if it's a utility type deal, that would be ours.
What about a tree root? That's
Well, and they also, service
Our tree
does,
root, in the past, if our lawn tree,
tree lawn tree.
right.
yeah, that will be determined on the review. And even with the review,
I like that.
Service they have a slab jacking program, so if they can fix something by, just slab jacking, they can put it on that program as well. So your first stop would be get a hold of the service department, see if they can either do a quick repair or if it qualifies to get on the list, and then we bid that list in future years. So we're making our way through the city, but we do seem to get a lot of calls from residents at this point because they see us out there. And
We were at a homeowners association meeting last night, and one of the things they came up and said, one was a condo association, said we have uneven sidewalks. Will we fix that? And I said, I'm not sure. I think it has to be something we've done. We're not just
Like
arbitrarily
a
fixing
utility
it.
or a tree lawn tree or something
But-
that's usually been the criteria.
Okay.
I think it's amazing, and I love that the city does that for tree lawn trees. I mean, is that abnormal to Twinsburg? One more thing we can toot our horn, because I don't think a lot of cities do that. As a guy who has houses in different cities, I have spent a fortune. I just got a quote for 4 sidewalk blocks now because of a tree, and granted, I'm doing a whole driveway
It's
too, but
something that we own those trees, though. I mean, we had them put in with the developments,
what Mr. Post is
history of it,
Yeah.
from what I understand.
Right.
is
but
talking
same
about,
as the
different
city, though, over
communities
there.
do different things.
the trees in it was to make us fix them.
Yeah,
That's-
they do. They have sidewalk programs, and I think I've been here about 4 different times. I'm not even going there with
But if I have
how
a
those
sidewalk
sidewalks.
that there's no trees around on my property and it's uneven, it's on me to fix that.
Correct.
Thank you.
I think it's great we do that. That's very nice.
Welcome.
One more thing to toot our horn.
And then coming May and June, we'll start on the resurfacing through the city, starting over in resurfacing. We start at the Locust Grove Cemetery. We'll be doing that in the beginning of May. Midway, Charles Court, and Dutton as well in the beginning of May. Then we'll be moving over to Stone Creek Terrace, Croydon, the stub of Haverhill, and doing that, and hopefully have that complete by the end of May. We'll be doing parking lot for the fire station and the building department in between there in June. As well as resurfacing of Meadowwood and a portion of Sandalwood in June. And then if funds allow, we'll be resurfacing Stanley and Palmer following that. The big project we have associated with this is a long-term project, which is the elimination of the traffic signal at Church Street, changing that to a stop sign. That goes into effect on the 14th, which is not this week, but next week. I think that's the 14th.
Monday is the 14th.
Yep. So what we'll be doing is putting a stop sign on Church Street. We'll be coning off the area to bring that intersection down to what would be a typical width. It's very large. I think you've got to cross 80 feet of pavement right now. Working to try and get it more pedestrian friendly. The traffic signal was not warranted, as we've discussed before, so that will be going in effect. We'll be running it for 90 days before we start putting any pavement or doing anything permanent there. Looking at how it's operating, make sure that it's operating appropriately as anticipated, and then we'd be starting that work in July, if everything goes well, end of July, August, to put it in permanently, and then we'll have a rapid flash beacon to cross Ravenna Road, and the traffic signal would be completely taken out. So that's a big project. Everybody's been impacted a little bit by if they go up to the northeast on Ravenna Road, by the Cuyahoga County engineer who's resurfacing Broadway, which we didn't know about in coordination with our project, but I think everything's going to work out in the end pretty good. It may even take people out of that intersection a little bit, finding alternate routes. We did go out to bid at the Four Corners intersection there at Ravenna, Shepherd, Broadway, and Richmond. We are working through those bids. We had hoped to bring those to you tonight. We were now looking at, once we get through some issues we only had one bidder. It was a little bit high. Working through our issues with the law department and ODOT, we are hoping to bring that to you in 2 weeks to make that award, to keep that project moving along.
Is the plan, Amy, now that Cuyahoga County is starting their project, are we going to be able to complete ours in and around the same time as theirs?
Theirs actually is a resurface, theirs will go faster.
Okay.
Ours is a year-long project because of traffic signals and other stuff, and because we've got all the different quadrants, you can't close everything at once.
Sure.
So there's some major storm sewer work. Everybody knows that intersection kind of floods. So there is a lot of storm sewer work that is being undertaken in that area. Water line has to be lowered to make that happen, so there's a number of water line lowerings. And then the widening has a lot of, and all those moving pieces, just because it's just a small area, but they're on different quadrants, can't be done at the same time. You kind of have to move around, and it just takes longer. So what, could take a week to do fire hydrants now is going to take multiple weeks, because you can only close down a small amount of the road at a time, as far as where they're working.
So that area is going to be ripped up in some way, shape, or form for the foreseeable future?
Yes, and I believe it's going to be over the winter, because I think some of the getting access to poles and stuff like that has a long lead time for those traffic signals that have to be relocated.
Thank you.
So. And then if there's any other questions, that's kind of...
I got one more. I know you always do a really good job of letting residents know when, their properties or roads will be affected. Could you send us out that list that you just rattled off, just so I know that there's, like on Meadowwood specifically, there was a couple. I just want to be able to give our residents a heads up.
Yep.
Not that you're not going to.
Actually, there's a nice little, I'll send you two maps that we include with our bid.
Okay.
And it actually highlights, so it's a picture's 1,000
perfect.
words.
Okay.
That way you know what part of Sandalwood, as opposed to what part of that little stub on Haverhill. So when I say the name, it's not the whole street. So you
Perfect.
can see.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Jamie, I have one question. A while back, we discussed and approved a contract for traffic signals. Have we gotten anything back from that study, or?
Well, we did the study,
Okay.
okay, and the study basically is one of the things from the, which was warrants, and studied the need and et cetera. So now what we're doing is putting together construction plans. So survey has started. They've done a fair amount of survey, and that, on the ground at intersections, and they started it when kind of the weather broke this winter. So yes, we are moving along on that. We will eventually then meet with a lot of the departments, making sure what we're proposing and doing out there, because we'll have emergency vehicle stuff going on it. We'll have different things for different, what our electrician wants and doesn't want as far as servicing, those types of things. So yeah, we are moving along. CMAQ funding, which is air quality funding, is one of the things we're going to pursue, and that will be probably this summer an application, and then we'll also pursue the fall applications from AMATs if we don't get the CMAQ funding, to find some outside funding to actually build what we're designing, and having it in design is going to help because we can show % complete in plans by that time.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Post, you had something?
Yes, two questions. Number one, any update on the Liberty sidewalk? It's been a long time since I've asked. I just thought I'd ask if there's any.
We did the survey this winter, and internally, we've done the design work on it. The estimate is put together, so it's ready to package up with the fall. TASA funding through AMATs, which funds some residential for a piece. They only fund up to a certain dollar amount, so our projects are broken out accordingly so that we can get the maximum amount of funding. So we will be making application. The AMATs funding is every 2 years, odd years. So this year, so we're ready to go. Again, we'll have plans done, which means we'll have all of our red flags out of the way, which is one of the big issues with trail funding. So, and really, it's a wider sidewalk from the ball fields heading to Post Road, I think, is our first phase, and I'm not quite sure where we're stopping.
Awesome. Awesome, that's that. And I just wanted to say thank you. I sent an email to Sam, Mayor Scafidi, excuse me, and Amy and Dennis last night. We had a question that came up at our homeowners association about the conduit and everything that's being done on Glenwood Road where they're boring down, and I sent a great email. I copied Bill on it, but I'm going to forward it to everybody here. I should have already done that. I don't know why I didn't, but it was really an Ethan's Green questions. But there were a lot of resident concerns about the fact that the tree lawns and everything are being chewed up, and there are tire marks. There are street lights that have gone
They
down.
talked about them knocking down,
Multiple street lights.
And after
I said, most of the time, that's an auto accident. I don't.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that they did that. My answer was that if they did that, we would repair it. I did just speak to, they're already in process to get those replaced, and I don't think it necessarily was the contractor. But like I said, they will get fixed. So I didn't, in
All
my
the
response,
residents were like-
if they caused damage and if they were the ones to have done it, we would go after them, and we would have record of that,
Right.
to know we would go after them.
Do you understand what they're doing?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't. So it's what I believe is that they're running this plastic conduit through just the main roads, like 91, Glenwood, and then at some point they're going to run the fiber through the conduit, but it's only on the main road. So, like, for instance, they're going down Glenwood. If Jay Magnus wants to get tied into this and he lives at the bottom of Timothy,
It's not for that.
at the, huh?
It's not for residential connection.
Correct.
Oh,
It's for emergency services
Okay,
throughout the whole
my
county.
mistake. I wasn't sure what it was for.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, there are others coming in at the end of that response. There are others coming in that are putting
Other
applications
companies.
in, like Kinetics, which is a Windstream, fiber end of Windstream. So up in the Meadowwood area, I know we've had applications coming in over there, and that's an easement right behind the right-of-way, so it's in the front lawns. We're still working through getting those plans well enough that we'll actually approve something. Omni-Fiber, I think we've had probably 5 or 6 fiber companies asking and starting to submit plans and applications associated with providing that speed or those connections to residential type and businesses.
Gotcha. Well, I just wanted to thank you that email was very well well thought out, everything. There's links for people to go on to. I just sent it to everyone on council while she was explaining that. I just sent it, there's links there that if there's any issues or anything, you can go right on there. So if any residents have any issues with it, you could just forward them this link. But I want to thank you for that. That was a great response, and I appreciated the quickness of it, really. And I've already forwarded to the residents who also thanked me on your, so I'm thanking you on their behalf as well. I think that's all I have.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy, I appreciate it. Next agenda item is city fleet management. I'm not sure who's,
Who put it up there?
I don't know.
Still use Cartograph?
Pardon me?
Do we still use Cartograph?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Let's see here. There's a bunch of stuff on the agenda here that I don't know that is necessarily going to be spoken to tonight. Service winter project update.
Well, it's snowing tonight.
Yeah.
Is it supposed to snow again tonight?
I wasn't sure what the question was on
Okay,
that. and
okay.
or I would have had, I don't know why the department head's not here. Maybe they didn't know these were coming
Okay,
up either.
yeah.
But I know they've worked on the inside. That's what they
Okay.
typically do. And so they've got a lot of the projects. I think most of them, the winter projects were completed by them.
Okay.
You know, I know they did a project in police. They did a project over here for the council clerk. They did a project for
HR.
fire. You know, their workroom or lunchroom or whatever, so, yeah, they completed quite a bit. So,
Okay.
that's all I can tell you.
Great, thank you, Mayor. And then, again, these may be placeholders. We had facilities and then maintenance plans and current projects. I didn't know if there was anything you wanted to add to that, or?
Yeah, I don't have that
Okay, that's fine. Okay, no worries. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Next up is unfinished business, new business, and miscellaneous. Mr. Post, do you have anything this evening?
No, I'm good.
No? All
Thank
right.
you.
Mr. Bonacci?
I have one question that maybe could be answered at a future meeting. If the city's providing access to utilities for high-speed internet, or for fiber-based high-speed internet, are we also in position to provide or assist the cellular companies with their infrastructure upgrades? In other words, T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T all have wireless high-speed for homes, priced very competitively, but ironically, the service stops directly across the street from me. And hearing about infrastructure being dug into the ground, it would be interesting to hear if we also are hearing from these companies to add maybe over-the-air high-speed internet.
I was not a candidate either. I looked into Verizon. My girlfriend has Verizon, so I was like, all right, it's so much cheaper, let me look into it. I typed in my address, they said, no, you
Don't have it, yeah.
You don't qualify for
So
it.
right across the street, there's a pole by the bridge that the creek goes underneath, or a sledding area, right down by the senior citizens home, and where Steve Murphy sticks signs out in his yard. There's a pole, the telephone pole, and there's a booster that's at the top, and they stuck a dozen of those around town.
Those are the really tall ones, right?
Yeah, maybe 10 years ago, and we don't have any, at the time, we did not have any ability to tell them where to put those or how many to put those. They're a utility, and they pretty much can do what they want to do.
Pretty much.
Is that correct?
And they're not our poles either. I mean, they
Right.
belong to another utility. So, they were probably getting, well, they have to get, I know now that you have to get permission to put anything on those poles, but
those are the
I think
Verizon
you said
ones?
something about the city assists these
Not
people.
assist, but
Like,
if-
what
if-
assistance? Because we don't assist we're not
if-
assisting them.
If we're getting solicitations for permits or access to easements for one type of utility, are we also getting a similar requests from the alternate type, I guess is the question.
Yeah, that's what Amy had mentioned. We have other companies that have approached us and want to do, the more residential. And so they do have to come to us for permitting to work in the right-of-way. That's the only place that they're allowed to go. They're not allowed but they have to get, we have an ordinance that says that they have to get a permit and, all that stuff to be able to work in our right-of-way.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, I can tell you, Mr. Bonacci, I know this idea of a connected Twinsburg has been something that I know has caused a lot of frustration for years, right? Like Mr. Post, you can't get Verizon high speed where I can't. It's very weird. So yeah, we'll can't see if we can't get an update at the next safety or the next Public Works meeting. All right, Mr. Fury, Mr. Barr, Mr. Scafidi, anything else?
My questions were about the county project
Okay.
because I didn't truly understand it. I at one point I thought that it was like the main line and didn't know how
Right.
they were spread out. What for the safety forces, what exactly are they going to implement at some point? Do you know what that is?
For what issue?
Okay, so the county's running conduit, they're going to put fiber through it for safety forces. What does it do for safety forces?
I don't know what their intention is at
Okay.
this point.
Really quickly.
I was serious, because we just switched a bunch of radios out, and we have antennas and all over the place to make sure that we have coverage, throughout the areas that we cover.
Mark, you got an answer?
Yeah, I got a little bit.
Oh, thank you.
State your name, sir, and the where you live.
Katowski, 10075 Ravenna Road. These fiber they're putting in all the Summit County communities.
Okay.
So it's going to be a big link that connects all of us together, which if the internet goes down worldwide, as long as our lines are intact, we should at least be able to communicate with each other. Secondarily, that's going to allow us to use that as a backup internet for all of our buildings. So right now, we subscribe to 2 different internet services. In case one goes down, we have another one. So that's going to allow us to get rid of one of those and just use that for the secondary. And then I think 2 or 3 years down the road, they're hoping to be able to expand that to offering residential. So,
Wow.
Thank you.
So that's just for Summit County.
Summit County, yes.
And Summit County is just paying for that as
They
a
are,
courtesy to all of the cities?
Correct.
Sure that you're chipping in
I'm sure we're
somewhere.
chipping in, yes, a little bit. But I'm saying they're not actually sending a bill to Twinsburg to say, help
No,
pay
you're
for
getting
this
on your tax
directly.
bill.
Right. Indirectly, they're getting, of course.
Correct.
Everything.
I have 2 items if you want.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily Public Works,
got
but
time.
Well, go ahead.
we've been we've been giving citations
Yes.
for parking in the streets. And, we're working on updating our legislation for that as well. And we're going to include a snow parking ban. We're going to include,
Right.
It's got some language in there that needs to be changed, and that'll be coming to you guys. I hope to get that in before, the summer recess. Matt, I told Matt I'd like to see that ASAP brought before council. So we're going to be updating that. The other thing is, I'm starting to have a lot of problems with storage bins. These people are storing, the dumpsters in their
Pods.
yards and the pods, exactly. Yeah. There's one in particular that I could tell you that's been there a year and a half since this house caught fire. And they're fighting with their insurance company. There's been no work there. There's nothing happening. And these dumpsters, the dumpster and the pod is sitting there in the driveway, and the neighbors are they've had it with that. And so we're creating legislation to address that. Although there may be something already in our legislation or in our code, but I think that we've got to add a little bit more teeth to it. So that'll be coming before you guys too. And I'd like to really see that get passed sooner than later before recess, because they're starting to pop up now.
Okay.
And people are calling and they're getting frustrated.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Look forward to reading them. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? All right. We have no absent members this evening. The next meeting of the Public Works Committee will be on Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. And with that, I will adjourn the Public Works meeting at 6:34 p.m. Thank you, folks.